So I grabbed this piece from the subreddit, and for those wondering how to get your work critiqued, you just have to go to istebrak.com and click on the subreddit icon in the top right corner. That'll take you to my subreddit, and that's where you can submit your work for critique. This is where I grabbed this piece from. So today I'm actually going to critique this piece while preserving the style and trying my best to preserve the style. I'm going to talk about what you did right, what you did wrong. Hopefully my screen is showing everything is good to go. Okay, so what you did right, I really like how you did the right kind of blur, the right level of blur in the background. You did a really good job with that, but there's a lot of things wrong here. This shoulder and this shoulder are not from the same person. All right, this shoulder should be like that. Then we've got the shadow. What's this shadow here? What is it falling on? The wall is all the way back there. Isn't it? Right? Unless the couch is right up against the wall. If it was, there should be an ambient occlusion shadow here somewhere. And then there is, of course I wouldn't know. These are just from my visual library. I don't have a reference. These are the knowledge points that I have that are like the you know, where I'm seeing where there might be a mistake. So this is based off my visual instinct. The breasts they just look wrong because you're outlining them. There's no outline on breasts, even in a style. It should only be done with shades. Exactly the same thing with collarbones, though you get away with it a little bit better with lines because they're all bone, whereas the breasts are just all flesh. This eyebrow ends before the lashes end. Something about that does not make sense. There's no real expression in the eyes, but I like the gaze. The gaze does look accurate. It does look like it's looking in the same direction. You're outlining the top lip. You really don't need to do that. The top lip comes from, obviously, the realistic lip. The style is based off something we know that is realistic, and the realism of lips is that they are very mushy and blended. Did I hear breasts? Yes, you did, Lex. Settle down. And then we have kind of like an unusual separation between the hips and the rest of the body. Feels like we should be seeing a little bit of the rib cage and then the rest of the body. Or we should see less of everything. It seems like it's a bit forced, but I can make it work with the way you did it. I like the way you did the hair texture, though it could be just a little bit more fuzzy, a little bit more soft looking. The hairline here, yes, she has these kind of ironed down edges. I forget what the term is, gelled down, I guess. But there should still be some blending between the hairline and the skin. And there's complete straight line right here, straight line, like almost it's a perfect, oh my God, it is a perfect straight line. It's perfect straight line almost in the middle of the reference, in the middle of the painting, and it's supposed to represent the cheekbone of a female face. So this is not the line you use. This is not how you represent a female face. This is too much looking like a basic outline of, you know, like a cartoony starting template of a character. You know, eventually you have to like add curves to that starting template. You don't just leave it in the same starting template. It's like you kept the working lines on too long. I'm going to make a little bit of this and that edit here and there to the image. This frame is not making much sense since it doesn't seem to be sitting under the brightness of the light, so it feels like it's just floating. It's just a floating alien box. Her pet alien lives inside. Why am I always making jokes about aliens these days? I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and try to just completely throw my skill at this while preserving the style. So the secret to look really cool expressions is make the two different eyebrows do two different expressions. That's the secret to really, really interesting expressions. The secret is to make each eyebrow do a different expression, but both work. So here she's curious, thinking, watching, but here she is a little bit innocent, also a good woman, a kind person. So I'm showing her curiosity, but also her sexiness, her mystery in one eyebrow, and I'm showing her innocence and kindness in the other eyebrow by raising it up. Do you see that? So I can't make both look like super sexy, dangerous femme fatale, because then we have a one-dimensional character. But if that's what you want your character to look like, that's fine. But I want to do a little bit of both. Okay, so you see that? So before, after, before, after. You can really push it around. And just keep exploring, keep experimenting, see what the result looks like. So I'm just going to try to make both eyebrows look like they're sharp. I'm trying to keep the original artist's design, but the eyebrows are really big for female characters, especially beauty, pinup, perfect beauty characters like this. You really want to push a little bit further. So before, kind of looked worried a little bit if you really think about it. And then after, so curious and kind, sexy, mysterious, and kind, or sexy and kind, because she's wearing that like sweetheart dress. I think that's what it's called. I'm not sure if that's what that dress cut is called, but it kind of makes sense all in all in the fashion. And then we've got the cheekbones, which are completely missing. Is that what a sweetheart neckline looks like? Forget what it's called. I'm going to try to align. Listen, y'all. This jawline right here. Do you see it? Everybody see it? I want to see eye emojis. Do you guys see it? Everybody see it? Okay. It's supposed to be aligned with the edge of the lip. Okay. So try to do it like that. Because then it just doesn't work, because it feels like the jaw is lower than the lip. It's weird. It doesn't feel right. That only happens if the camera is shorter than her, lower than her. But right now she's tilting her head at the camera to get the best angle. And so we need that jawline to match both sides. Then I'm going to let the bump of her hand go in front of the face. And I'm going to try to let both lip corners be symmetrical. The nose tip is fine, but I'm going to try to get rid of that line. Again, I'm trying to preserve your style while also keeping things realistic. I'm raising the ears to be level with the eyebrows and the eyes for both sides. And I'm going to make sure both ears have the same orbit. All right, and then we've got the shoulder, the arm, and then this arm, which I don't know if I can do with liquify. I think I gotta just paint that. So I'll deal with that in a bit. And then I'm going to make the jawline match. So again, let's take a look at the before and after, before, after, before, after. Okay, I'm going to try to get rid of the neckline because of the way she's bending her head. Before, after. She's also lowering her head to her hand, so it feels off when we can see a perfectly straight neck, but the head is lowered to the hand, right? Before, after, before, after. So very, very simple proportion changes. And then the elbow seems a bit too low. So I'm just bringing it here. And the way you added weight to her arms, I'm not going to change her body weight. I'm going to leave that alone because I don't feel like there's anything wrong with it. But I just think that the arms are too long. It doesn't feel realistic. And the forearm doesn't have as much fat on it as the rest of the arm. And then we've got this, which I have to change with transform. And then the top of the head, which doesn't feel like it really has that volume of a, like the afro hair do, like the volume that afro hair is capable of, which is like a lot of volume. And before, after, just feels flattened at the top. The problem is I don't want it to be the exact same size as her her head. So I don't want to mess that up too much. Okay, so let's move forward. Alrighty. The next thing I'm going to do is try to fix this arm. Really, to save time, I'm going to select this, copy, paste, flip it over, and just try to limit the amount of work I'm doing in class right now. So again, I don't know if this is the shadow in the back of the wall, if the couch is far enough away from the wall. I guess the couch is part like it's connected to the wall, like it's against the wall. So I'm just going to give it a simple shadow somewhere here. And the couch itself should also have a bit of a shadow against the wall. Okay, so there are some things that style doesn't care about, for instance, or realism doesn't care about when it comes to style. And that is the rules of light and the rules of composition. Those are not style exempt rules. We still have to follow those rules. So before I do, I'm just going to repaint some of this here. And I would also like to free Palestine. I would also like a free Palestine with a side of justice, and some revolution sauce, please. And can I have a justice wrap? Watch them do that. Watch those companies do that just to, like, you know, make some money off Palestine. And then I'm just gonna blend away. I'm gonna actually get rid of your lines on the body, just because I can see you don't really have lines around most of the shades. So I'm going to try to copy that. And then I'm going to get rid of the lines completely on the breasts. Just completely start fresh. Okay. And just completely get rid of all of that. You don't need to do a lot of work to make the breasts feel like breasts. Okay, Photoshop just lagged on me. And all you need to remember is where the light is coming from and where the main shadow of one breast is. So it's probably somewhere there. You throw that in with whatever shadow color you have. So I'll use this one. And then we blur it. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And we just blur it until it feels right. We check the navigator. And then we're just going to erase very, very slightly. And then we're going to sharpen the shadow at the top. And the same exact thing on the other side, but it's going to be with light. And you can also just blur it. And then the shadow outline reveals the other breast. So it's like somewhere there. And then there is a gradual shadow that goes into the cleavage. Then there is this big block here for the chest. All right, so you want to draw the breasts with as little effort as possible, because the more effort you put into them, the more awkward and overly done, and like somebody who's never seen breasts before heard about them described, and then they did it. It doesn't feel like they've ever seen breasts before or know what they are like. And then I'm just gonna blend out the collarbone. Highlight first. So when you outline areas of the body that are just fleshy, really, then it really starts to look uncanny. And then I'm going to use that highlight color and climb this breast out of its shadow area. So the chest really is what makes the other breast visible. It's always better to work with reference. I'm not a breast expert. There are always things I'm missing, but the way it was drawn before felt like it was overworked. And then there was just a little bit of extra shadow off of, like falling off of one breast over the other. Darken, and it's just like falling on it. And then the exact same thing I'm going to do with the arms. I'm going to think about where the light is coming from. And in a new layer, I'm throwing that shadow down. So again, what's the core shape? Just like I did with the breast, that's a sphere. For the arm, it's a cylinder. And I'm using soft brush. You can also do the Gaussian blur trick, but it's always better to just use a combination of tools. But I'm keeping your lines, I'm keeping your outlines. Okay. And then this far arm, even though I duplicated it, I still have to darken it. That far side needs to be darkened. And then I'm going to get the bounce color of that wall up against that arm. This color right here falls on that arm. Same exact thing with the other side. That wall color. Okay. And so I don't want to start hover rendering or just focusing too much on one side. So I just need to hurry it along. I'm going to make sure this side of the neck does not have too much shadow because that's the side that's facing the light. I'm also going to start blending the hair together. So the hair of the eyebrow should be blended in with this shadow, even if it's just a gentle blending. If you don't want to do all of it, but it should be a gradient of some kind. It does not feel natural to just end the eyebrows there, even if it's a colored style. It feels more natural to do it as a blend. Wonder if my new smudge brush will do anything. Yeah, that's good enough. And then I'm just blending the hairline so more of that skin texture sneaks in. And I'm going to see if my smudge brush will do anything about this hair here. So I'm just blending in big blocks her hair texture. And I want it to read as a texture, not as a paint by numbers illustration. You guys remember those? And I'm going to use Dodge tool to kind of elevate the light on that side of her hair that actually gets light. But I am going to color correct. So never use Dodge tool just like that. You always have to color correct. And then before I did all of that, I'm going to go back, paste, and then delete at only the areas that I don't feel like will have any light on them. So like the shadows, so we can get that natural hair shine. And then I'll select some areas to have saturation. That's fine, I'll just use color. And I'll just throw in some of that. So I never let Dodge tool saturate for me, and I never let Dodge tool highlight for me all the way. Sorry about my voice. I kind of let it, I piggyback off of it. And you should have the same relationship with Dodge tool. You should never let Dodge tool paint for you. If you do, then you're not understanding how these textures actually work in real life. And I'm blurring the edge of the hair because it's hair, so it needs more of like a fuzziness while preserving the style. I'm adding realism, and you can do that too. And I'm just adding those flyaways. And then I just don't understand the shading that's happening on the face. There should be shading that looks like it's following the same direction of the light, right? So there's no real shade happening here. On the nose, there's no shade on the nose, there's no shade on the mouth, no shades on the cheekbones, none on the temple, none on the hair, none on the other side of the hair. So what happened to all that? You know, where did all those shadows go? And then I'm using soft brush to soften their edges. Oops, and then I'm just making sure there's a shade in between the eyebrows as well. So as you can see, just like that. Okay. So it's just the small errors I'm noticing. It's just the small things that can push this piece of yours a little bit further. And that's what this community is for, is just, okay, here's my painting, it's done. I poured so much effort into it and I want it to be a finished painting, but I'm just tunnel visioning so much I cannot see where else to push it. That's what the community is for. It helps you see what you couldn't have seen unless you took like a massive break from this painting for months and then came back to it after you leveled up. And even then, might not even need a level up. And then for the eyes, I don't feel like the eyes need too much work, but they're not that symmetrical. And they're not circular. Never sacrifice on the circular shape of the pupils and the iris. Never take shortcuts with those unless you are going to make sure they're symmetrical. So if they're supposed to be squared or like Toothless, the design of Toothless has squared pupils, and Iris I think is squared, and the pupil's circular. I forget, but that's different style altogether. But oh, if you're going to draw a human, most of the time it's going to be a circular iris. So make sure they're both exactly circular. So this sidelong expression needs perfectly aligned features so it actually feels like it's rotating. All right. And then I'm just getting rid of the lip line you have. And if it's supposed to be makeup, you could easily do it with a darker lip color. And then I'm just going to get rid of the majority of the shadow of the septum to make sure that it's just an edge. Do you see? You didn't even need that line. You just needed the edge that line guided you to. Do you see that? And the same thing, I'm going to try to reveal this nostril a little bit by using some of the shadow here to show that the nostril is of the same value as the rest. And using this shadow here to draw a shadow coming off the nostril, and I'm going to blend that side. Maybe this one should have been a bit wider. Okay. And so small things are going to add up to one big difference, and then I'm going to address the light environment in the room, and then we're done. Just small changes, really. The side of the nose is just a bit too, I would say it's too flat. At least make one side of the nose brighter than the other side, because the nose being much more dark on the lighter side, it's making this whole scene feel flat. We know where the light is coming from. It's coming from behind, from the side. Look at the shadow of the neck. And so we want to achieve that same continuity in the shadows. And the side of the nose that's looking at the light here should be lighter, at least that much. And because she's got those hooded eyes, I'm going to add more shadow to the hood of her eye. Some things I only see when I zoom out. So you can preserve your style. You don't have to change it. Nobody said you had to. It's all about the light source, and it's all about the form that reveals the light source. But really, it's the real diva here is the light. The more consistent you are with it, the more benefits you get. And then I'm going to add a shadow for the lower eyelid. It's going to go a long way to making the face feel a little bit more charming and realistic. I'm only adding to your style. I'm not taking away from it. And then the lips, again with the shadow color, that dark color, you don't have to use a value this dark for the lip liner. You can just use a brown. It doesn't have to be pure black. If you use pure black, even if your style is a line style, it's going to make it look muddy. So look at how much cooler the lips look and how much more plump they look when you don't use a black. They look a lot more lip-like, a lot more glossy. Okay, and I'm just going to use some of that skin color. And just the only place that should be dark is the dark spots of the lips. Those are the rules. The rules that I didn't make up. Those are the rules that our human anatomy made up. And then just letting some of that shadow sneak into the upper lip. And I want to add a little bit more to her eyebrow. I want to make this eyebrow slightly lower and make the other eyebrow slightly higher. I think what that will do is just make her look more intelligent. We like our pretty girls intelligent too. Because knowledge is the real beauty. Okay, did you guys hear that? Knowledge is beauty. And then I'm just gonna blend away. And then now I need to decide what's more important in this scene. First of all, her head feels a little small for her body, so I'm gonna increase the size. So that she at least looks bigger in the canvas. Do you know what I mean? Before she looked a little small. Now I need to decide what the focal point is and what the background is doing. So I'd like for her to be a little bit darker than her background, but the light is also falling on her. So like, how do we balance that? We could do something crazy and kind of like boost the values on the side of her face a little bit more so that we get this this very clear cut response to the light. But right now she seems to be fighting for the focal point a great deal, and it's not working. Something about this is not working. Her character against the background, like she needs more contrast, or she needs to be darker. It's hard to tell what it is. It's also really, really monochromatic. Again, it's like, how do I do this without damaging the style too much? So I'm going to boost the levels in the second layer, decrease the value in the corners so that the background is really bright. Let me try different things, and then kind of delete at her character. No, delete at the side. No. There's just something off, and I can't tell what it is. I don't know if it's the background not being bright enough. I don't know if she's not bright enough, but there is something off. I can't tell. Let me fix this frame and then see. I wish I had the reference. That way I could know for sure. But let me use that background value. I'm throwing it right over the frame. Even if the frame isn't illuminated in your reference, it's taking up a whole lot of focal importance, I guess, right now. My computer has been lagging all day. God damn. Okay. Oh, man. Why are you doing this? What is even running? Nope, it's not Mozilla. What is happening? How big is this file? It doesn't matter. And then I'm just gonna blend this banding away. I can't tell what it is. I really can't. Something about this feels very wrong, and I think it's got to do with her complexion. If I look at the navigator and I squint my eyes, her arm feels very, very light. So if I were to darken everything except the highlights, might that make it a little bit more believable? Again, I'm not sure if that's what it was, but she definitely needed a leveling of the skin. And I'm just going to keep reseeding the values into shadow. And then show you the before and after, but not before I take care of that shadow in the background. So her shadow against the back, this shadow right here. So let me turn that off. This shadow is so awkward and it's hugging against her character so much. You might as well just extend it so that it sits a little bit more far from her, and then you could blur it just like that, so it gives us a little bit more of a clear presence of that shadow. And I'm just going to go ahead and blur it. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. So do you see that? It just it just gives us a little bit of a believable cast shadow there. But still, there's something really off about this. And I think I figured out what it is. I think that this whole light behind her needs to be more white. So that she is more disconnected from that, and I think darkening her definitely helped. And I'm just going to darken her a little bit more. And then we're going to finally address that issue with the lower body. So filter, liquify. Really, if you have to show this part of her waistline, just like go for the full connection between torso and waistline. So just like make it seem like she's leaning more, or like laying down more. And then there's the almost tangent like shadow placement here. So just lower it a bit so that it doesn't end at an awkward line hugging the canvas edge. So that it's not just like thin right at the edge of the canvas. And then there is the rest of the glow for the skin. Let me just do some color correction. And I'm just going to pick a highlighter for the skin that's yellow based. I'm going to zoom out so I can really see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to try to apply it. But you know what? I'm going to apply it with a blocking brush so that we have like this reignition of the style. And I'm just blocking in these highlighters so that we can get that blocky style back. Son of a... Just like that. And then just like a block within a block within a block for the shoulder. And then a block there. And I do want to blend out some of it. I haven't checked what you guys are saying, but give me a minute. This is insane. What size is this canvas? Oh, well, my computer caps out at 3,000. So let me just save myself some future pain. And I'm just blending. I also want to crop it because it feels just a little bit like a square canvas, but I'll crop it after. There's also the issue of color. The color feels just a little bit monochromatic and boring. And I'm just going to lay in some final blocks for the forearms, shadows for the breast area. Shadows for this arm, and that might help us figure out what's wrong with her character. Shadow for the collarbones. And I blend out most of each brushstroke, but I want to keep the grit of the brushstroke just to keep that style going strong. Again, something is off, but I don't know what it is. I'm pretty sure it's got to do with that background color. Because the more I check the navigator, the more off it feels. But really, there's really nothing we can do. So I'm going to double up the layer, and I'm going to cool down the painting, but I'm going to delete at wherever the light is touching so that we only have cool shadows after the deletion. I'm not deleting the cast shadow. I want that to stay a bit more cool. I think the thing that's wrong is that the background value is very yellow, and that is more of a color that we use for exact sunlight. And it just feels off to have the background more yellow than the skin. The skin should really be what's bright in this scene. And then just trying to make sense of the remaining form. And I think I'm going to stop it there because there's so much I can do, but I'd damage the style. So I'm not trying to do that today. I'm not trying to like make it into a whole new painting, but it's probably to do with a lot of the choices made in the lines and how there are no real edges and no real value, radial shades, ambient radial shades, and things just feel just a little bit off. And I'm just gonna get that background value to sit on this arm because it bounced on the arm. The color of the background there. Okay, so one thing that's wrong with the background is that the cast shadow here is not really as blurry as it should be. Fucking hell. And I'm just gonna give it a bit more of a blur. And I'm also going to blur some of these areas as well. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. So I'm just blurring a little bit here. I'm also going to replace these lines with like a pink color. I basically want to get rid of that shadow, that black line you have. Since it's supposed to be fabric, it's just too muddy. And I think that's what's happening, is there's a big fight between muddy values and saturated colors. So muddy lines and saturated colors. I might have blurred the background a bit too much, but that's okay. And I'm just finishing this off here. And then I'm also going to, okay, I could do a better job than that. And I'm also going to just bring in a general bloom in some areas as well. So just a glow from this direction out, or a glow from this direction down, or from here, from the middle area. So it adds a bit more activity to the light source, just from that background. Again, it's really hard to tell like what your reference was doing. I feel like it was way less monochromatic than this. I'd love to see the reference, if anybody knows what it is, if this is a famous picture or not. I think that'd be really cool if I could just compare what I did. If anybody can find it and send it to me on Discord after class sometime. I'll probably end up looking for it myself. Okay, let me experiment with where I want this to be. Really, it doesn't matter. But it needs to be there. Something is missing. Definitely. Filter, blur, Gaussian. I just want to get rid of some of that texture. Okay. I'm going to do one last little shift into blue. Zero that out actually. Maybe desaturate a bit. That also doesn't feel right. Something about these colors is wrong, and my eyes aren't seeing it. But anyway, let's take a look at the before and after. Okay, so image size 3000 after. Okay, so before, so the style felt like her head was squished. So in the before, it felt like her head was squished. Some of the lines made a messy overall look to the scene. The eyebrows felt a little awkward, like they didn't belong to the face. And then there is the anatomical mistake here with the arm. It's like the arm was just shaved off. I did soften it a great deal, but I'm just trying to figure out what that is, what that issue is. And then trying to get rid of these muddy lines. Do you see that muddy look? Do you see what I mean when I say a muddy look to the entire image just because you used black. You can still use lines, but they can be light lines. Write that back to me. You're allowed to like use a brown. You're allowed to use like a lighter gray. You don't have to use black. And then there's the, did you see what I mean here? It felt like the hips were disconnected from the torso. So we just raised them up to make sense. You're allowed to use lines, just don't use black. Yes. I'll let you guys go. I'll see you guys next class at Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you want to submit your work for critique, all you have to do is go to istebrak.com, click on the subreddit icon right here. That'll take you to my subreddit where you can submit your work for critique. All right, bye guys.